everyone, thank you for joining me right here once again on Jenny Poy Actual Speaking. My name is Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 50. Wow, we have come a long way. So great job, everyone. Now today, as I did let you know at the end of our 49 lesson, I will be talking about Korean traditions. Of course, when it comes to traditions, you can talk about customs as well. So basically, what are traditions? Traditions are, simply put, beliefs or even customs that have been passed down from generation to generation from a long, long time ago. Perhaps Korean traditions have existed since thousands of years. So what comes to mind when I say Korean tradition or customs? What would you think about? What would you talk about? Of course, I would say kimchi is definitely a custom of Korea. It is the representative food or side dish of Korea. You can also talk about maybe how memorial services are held. That is a Korean tradition. You can talk about certain etiquettes, like drinking etiquettes in Korea. There are proper ways of drinking, pouring to the elders, for example. And the shoes off custom is also perhaps a custom, not necessarily a tradition, but more of a custom. Anyhow, we'll talk about Korean traditions in general and also touch upon family traditions that are kept from generation to generation. Are you ready? Let's get started. Now today's topic is once again Korean traditions. So we'll be talking about Korean traditions in general that have been passed down from a long time ago by our ancestors, and also maybe family traditions that you keep or common family traditions that are kept. Let's take a look at the 5 W's and how questions and begin brainstorming. So here are our brainstorming cues. First of all, our W question. The first one happens to be who. So, with whom do you observe traditional customs or rituals? Okay, so we're talking about with whom, okay? Of course, not by yourself, but perhaps with other people, such as friends, family, relatives. So think about who it is that you observe traditional customs or rituals. Now, you may wonder, observe? Doesn't observe mean to really carefully look at something, view something, or study something? Yes, it does mean that, but in this case, observe means to follow, okay? To perform. So follow traditional customs or perform traditional customs. And ritual, a ritual is basically a custom. It's very close to perhaps a tradition, like a ceremony, okay? So with whom? Who do you observe these customs or rituals with? Okay, moving on to what? What are some interesting Korean traditions or customs? Now these are very simple questions, so just focus on the most important key questions. What, okay, are 5W and hows. So what are some family traditions? We're talking about family traditions in this case that have been passed on, okay, passed on or kept for generations. So if something is kept for a generation, it is maintained for a generation. A generation, usually when you're talking about human beings, lasts about 30 years, for example, okay? Average generation span is 30 years, for example. So there's you, your parents' generation, and your grandparents' generation, okay? That is one generation. So passed on or kept for generations, those things that have been maintained for many, many years. What are they? Also, what are some of your favorite ones? What are some of your favorite family traditions? Also, what are some deep-rooted customs or traditions of Korea? So we're talking about Korean customs or traditions. Deep-rooted, okay? What does deep-rooted mean? Deep means, that's right, the ocean can be deep, something can be deep, right? But if you say deep-rooted, it means that it's been there for a long time. It's existed for a long time. It has been maintained for a long time or kept for a long time. So we're basically talking about some very old customs or traditions of Korea. So what are they? Also, when are the major customs or rituals practiced? I mentioned that ritual, now they're very close to ceremonies. So when are the major customs or rituals or ceremonies practiced? Okay, moving on. Oh, and practice here does not mean 연습, okay? It means to perform in this case. Moving on, where do you generally go to practice certain traditions? So we're talking about locations or places you may go to, okay, to perform or even practice certain traditions or customs. You may talk about going to church, for example. It's not necessarily a Korean tradition or a custom, but if it is a family tradition, you can say, well, my family and I go to church to practice a traditions or a customs. You can also go to a Buddhist temple. You can go to your ancestors' grave sites, or you can go to your grandparents' house to, of course, practice certain traditions or customs. So focus on where it is. Also, why? Why do you or don't you observe specific customs or traditions? So we're talking about, once again, traditions and customs, but observe in this case does not mean to carefully look at, but it means to, that's right, perform, practice, or even hold. Okay, specific meaning special. Okay, so pick one specific custom or tradition and talk about why you do or do not practice it. Also, why do you personally think it is important to keep with your family traditions? Now here, keep something means to, right, have it, not give it away, keep it, okay, maintain something, but keep with something means to, that's right, keep it as well, maintaining, keep on following something, perhaps like a tradition or a custom, okay, keep doing something like an activity. So why do you personally think it is important to continue to keep these family traditions, in other words? Also, how do you pay homage to your ancestors? Pay homage to, okay? It's used quite often in this way. Basically, it means to pay respect to, okay? Pay respect to, be respectful. So pay homage to. Although it starts with an H, the H is silent. So it's not homage, it's homage. Homage. Pay homage to your ancestors. How do you do that? Also, how are some time-honored traditions practiced? Now, we all know what traditions and practiced means now, but what does time-honored mean? It's kind of similar to deep-rooted, right? Deep-rooted. It means that it's maintained or have been kept for a long time, from a long, long time ago. Also, time-honored mean that it has existed since a long, long time ago. So once again, the question is, how are some time-honored traditions practiced? Now, just to make it clear, these are our final brainstorming cues, but to pay homage to means to worship, to honor, and also time-honored means that it's been existing for a long time. It's acceptable for a long time. Do not be confused with these phrases and these idiom expressions. Okay, now that we're done brainstorming together, do some more on your own, and let's now move on to actual talk between Rachel and Peter.
Rachel, Chuseok's coming up pretty soon. Are you planning anything big?
Not really. I think maybe just to spend time with my family.
Okay.
We do that. That's a tradition that
Do you do a lot of traditional Korean things?
Actually, we don't. Like paying our respects to like our ancestors.
Oh.
We don't really do that. But we do it.
You don't bring food to the graves?
No, we don't. But we kind of
Okay.
do it in a different way. On like Korean New Year's, we go to my grandma's gravesite and my grandpa's gravesite, and we go and we have a little bit of like a worship service there, and just to pay our respects to my grandma and grandpa who passed away.
Right.
But the fun part is afterwards, where we all gather together as a family and we eat like the rice cake soup or tteokguk. And then we do the bowing down to the elders, my aunts and uncles, and we get envelopes full of money.
Mana? Just 10,000
Well,
won?
it depends on how old you are, actually.
Oh, really?
But I realized that the younger kids get more money, and when you get older, they give you less because.
Yeah, I don't think you need to get money
Yeah,
from it.
it's just fun though. It's a fun tradition that my family really likes to practice all throughout these years. Yeah. Is there any like Korean tradition that maybe you want to follow with your kids now that you have two little boys?
I don't know. I haven't really given it much thought. I mean, we might get them some hanbok at some point.
Oh yeah, the Korean traditional dress. Yeah, that sounds good.
The only Korean traditions I really have to follow in life are, drinking traditions, right? Where you have to use two hands to pour
Right, all
for
that-
somebody older, etc.
Yeah, that drinking etiquette, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I do remember though, again, during New Year's, another tradition that we have is playing yunori, which is like those wooden sticks. That
Oh, you
have
throw the
points on-
wooden sticks
Yeah,
down.
we
Okay.
actually play that.
Oh,
so
really?
it's fun to keep those traditions alive that my parents used to do back
Okay.
in the day.
Yeah, it
You should
sounds like
try
fun.
it with your kids when they get older.
Yeah, I'll have to. Well, maybe you can teach me so that I can teach them.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, did you enjoy the conversation between the two, Peter and Rachel? It sounds as though during the major holidays in Korea, for example, like on Chuseok or New Year's Day, they're not very busy. But Rachel did mention that on New Year's, she does get together with her family, her relatives, and they do visit their grandparents' burial site or grave site. Let's check out what they said in detail, line by line. Peter asks, Rachel, Chuseok's coming up soon. Coming up soon. Come up does not mean to really come up to a higher level. It means to approach, to near. Okay, it is soon Chuseok. 뭔가가 다가오다. It's coming up soon. So it's soon Chuseok. Chuseok's coming up soon. And then he asks, are you planning anything big? Simply put, do you have any plans? Are you planning anything? Are you planning anything big here means not size-wise, but in this case, big means special, okay? Are you planning anything special? Are you planning anything big? And what did Rachel say? She said, not really, not really. And then she says, maybe, I think maybe just spend time with my family. We talked about this a long time ago when talking about the topic family, right? So spend time with somebody means to, that's right, get together and perhaps do things with them, okay, for a while. That's a tradition that we do. It is true that often you keep a tradition, you practice a tradition. Okay, you perform a tradition, but sometimes, occasionally, tradition. It is used with the verb do. So that is a tradition that we do. And Peter asks a question using do as well. He says, do you do a lot of traditional Korean things? Do you do a lot of traditional things? And Rachel said, well, like paying our respects to our ancestors. Now, pay respect or pay respects to somebody means to show respect or to honor. That's right. So she says, like paying our respects to our ancestors. And she thinks, and then she says, no, we don't. But on Korean New Year's, we go to my grandma's and grandpa's grave site. Okay? So what is a grave site? You may all know a grave is perhaps a burial, okay? Like if you go to a cemetery, you may see many grave sites. It's a burial site, for example, okay? A place that people are buried, the deceased are buried. So on New Year's Day, they go to, of course, her grandma and grandpa's burial site or grave site. We have a worship service, okay, like a ceremony, okay? They commemorate there and pay our respects to my grandma and grandpa who passed away. Now, do you remember what this means? To pass away is another word of saying to die, but it is a much more polite or formal way of saying to die. Even in Korean, we don't say that an elder or our ancestor died, right? You could say it, 누가 죽었다 라기보다는 누가 돌아가셨습니다 라고 하죠. So it's just basically a more polite way of saying die, okay? Let's move on. But the fun part is afterwards. It's after all of that, where we all gather as a family, get together, and we eat the rice cake soup, 떡국, and then we do the bowing down to the elders. And we get envelopes full of money. You all know what this is, right? 세배, basically. So she's saying we eat 떡국 and then we do the bowing down. What is to bow? Bow basically means to do this, right? Okay, so you're dropping your head down and that is a bow. So bowing down, 세배, I guess this is a good way of expressing that, to the elders. And we get envelopes full of money. Moving on. And then, Peter says just 10,000 won, and Rachel says, well, it depends on how old you are. Actually, it's true. She did mention something about when you're younger, you tend to get more money, and the older you get, the amount kind of decreases. Anyhow, she says it's a fun tradition. So perhaps this is one of her favorite traditions. Oops, sorry about that. A fun tradition that my family likes to practice. Okay. Likes to observe, likes to keep, likes to perform or practice. And then she asks, is there any Korean tradition that you want to follow with your kids? Basically, this is just a hard way of saying, is there a Korean tradition that you want to maybe teach your children or enjoy with your children, okay? Follow. And then Peter says, I don't know. He's not sure. And he says, I haven't really given it much thought. Give something thought means to think about it. So in other words, you can say, I haven't really thought about it. I didn't really think about it. I haven't really given it much thought. We might get some hanboks at some point. At some point means what? Okay, you're talking about a certain time, but you're basically saying at some point, eventually. 결국에는, right? Okay? So the only Korean traditions I really have to follow, 꼭, right? You must follow in life are drinking traditions. That's right, Korean drinking traditions. And he explains it, where you have to use 2 hands to pour for somebody older. That's right. You can often talk about this tradition to many foreigners or custom to many foreigners that are new to Korea. So talk about the drinking traditions or drinking etiquette and explain to them that you have to use 2 hands, right? 2 hands or both hands to pour for somebody that's older. Moving on, she says that's true. And she remembers, she says, oh, again, during New Year's, another tradition that we have is playing yunori. Now, yunori is often, I guess if you look in the dictionary or even search it on the net, it's explained as a game of yut. So I just included that, okay? And then Peter says, where you throw the wooden sticks down. And she says, we actually play that. So it's fun to keep those traditions alive. A tradition can die. A custom can die. Some things can die, meaning they no longer exist. So if a tradition is no longer followed or practiced or observed, you can say that certain traditions die or died, right? But here we're talking about certain traditions, and it's fun to keep traditions alive. Keep it going, you know? Okay, and then she says, the ones my parents used to do back in the day. Back in the day. This expression you will hear a lot of people say, a lot of foreigners say, perhaps Americans, Canadians, whoever. Back in the day means 옛날 옛적에, back in the day. But usually you're talking about the good old times. During your childhood days, or I guess the days in your 20s, the good times back in your past, okay? So back in the day. You should try it with your kids when they get older. So she's talking about playing yunori with his kids. And he says, maybe you can teach me so that I can teach them. So from this sentence, his last sentence, you can basically understand that Peter does not know how to play yunori. So he's asking Rachel to teach him so he could teach his children how to play yunori. Okay, this was the conversation that Peter and Rachel shared. Well, take a listen to it one more time, check out the subtitles, and test yourself. Test yourself and see how much more you understand.
Rachel, Chuseok's coming up pretty soon. Are you planning anything big?
Not really. I think maybe just to spend time with my family.
Okay.
We do that. That's a tradition.
Do you do a lot of traditional Korean things?
Actually, we don't. Like paying our respects to like our ancestors. We don't really do that. But we do it.
You don't bring food to the graves?
No, we don't. But we kind of
Okay.
do it in a different way. On like Korean New Year's, we go to my grandma's gravesite and my grandpa's gravesite, and we go and we have a little bit of like a worship service there, and just to pay our respects to my grandma and grandpa who passed away.
Right.
But the fun part is afterwards, where we all gather together as a family and we eat like the rice cake soup or tteokguk. And then we do the bowing down to the elders, my aunts and uncles, and we get envelopes full of money.
Mana? Just 10,000 won?
Well, it depends on how old you are, actually.
Oh, really?
But I realized that the younger kids get more money, and when you get older, they give you less because.
Yeah, I don't think you need to get money
Yeah,
from people.
it's just fun though. It's a fun tradition that my family really likes to practice all throughout these years. Yeah. Is there any like Korean tradition that maybe you want to follow with your kids now that you have 2 little boys?
I don't know. I haven't really given it much thought. I mean, we might get them some hanbok at some point.
Oh yeah, the Korean traditional dress. Yeah, that sounds good.
The only Korean traditions I really have to follow in life are, drinking traditions, right? Where you have to use 2 hands to pour
Right, all
for
that-
somebody older, etc.
Yeah, that drinking etiquette, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I do remember though, again during New Year's, another tradition that we have is playing yunori, which is like those wooden sticks. That
Oh, you
have
throw the
points on-
wooden sticks
Yeah,
down.
we
Okay.
actually play that.
Oh,
so
really?
it's fun to keep those traditions alive that my parents used to do back
Okay.
in the day.
Yeah, it
You should
sounds like
try
fun.
it with your kids when they get older.
Yeah, I'll have to. Well, maybe you can teach me so that I can teach them.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back everyone. Now let's take a look at some expressions related to today's topic, which happens to be Korean traditions or even family traditions that are still practiced in Korea. Let's begin with this category, talking about Korean families, just as a warm-up, okay? So perhaps you can talk about a hierarchical structure, okay? Hierarchical structure is evident. It's obviously there. You can see it. You can feel it. It's there in a Korean family. So we're talking about a Korean family, but let's take a look at this word here. Hierarchical. It's a difficult word to pronounce. Now, hierarchy, that word comes from the word hierarchy. It's basically a system that is kept, especially in Korea, where there are, positions are very, very important. Rank is very important. So, for example, we respect our elders or people that are at a higher rank or position. So, we call that system a hierarchical structure. You can also call it a system, I guess. So it's evident. It exists in Korea, in many, many Korean families. You can also say we believe in duty, loyalty, and honor. Basically, we're talking about what Koreans are like. Koreans respect elders. It's all about honoring people, being faithful to one another. So you could say we believe in duty, loyalty, and honor. I think these are some great traits. So family is the most important part of Korean society. I would agree with this. So in Korean society, family is considered very important. So when you talk about Korean families, you can say, family is the most important part of our society, of Korean society. Now, I did say the most. And the reason I said the most is just to stress it, okay? The proper way of saying it is the most because the next word starts with an M, but to emphasize the importance of something or to stress it, you can say family is the most important part, okay, of Korean society. Let's move on. We lead a family-oriented life. Now, let's take a look at this. something-oriented life. In this case, a family-oriented life. If something is something-oriented, it means that it is very important, that something is very important. It's geared towards. So perhaps you can talk about how family is very important to Koreans, how everything is almost geared towards family. So we lead a family-oriented life, okay? All right, moving on. Now, we perform ceremonies to commemorate or celebrate our ancestors on the dates they passed away, and on special holidays. So we're basically talking about ceremonies or rituals, traditions, right? Memorial services, for example, they are held to commemorate our ancestors, to show respect to them, to pay homage to them on the dates they passed away. Okay, on the day they passed away, but on the dates, 날짜가 되겠죠? And on special holidays. All right, rice cake, 떡, traditional confectionery. Confectionery is a difficult word for sweets, sweet things. And fresh fruits are served to celebrate special days. So of course, for example, on important days, we do have, in many families, have tables full of food, right? And to pay respect to our ancestors, we have all sorts of delicious food. So once again, rice cake, 떡, traditional confectionery, things such as 한과. They're very sweet, right? So sweet things, you can call them confectionaries, or even fresh fruits. They're served to celebrate special days. The offerings at 차례, memorial services, for one's ancestors are performed on special holidays. So let's take a look at this. Offerings. Offerings. An offering or offerings are things that are offered for worship. Okay? So the offerings at 차례 or memorial services for one's ancestors are held, are performed on special holidays. Now let's move on to commonly practiced family traditions. Okay? In keeping with our family tradition, we pay homage to our forefathers at their gravesite. So let's just pay attention to 3 words here, or phrases. Pay homage to, remember, okay? It means to honor. Our forefathers means our ancestors. Forefathers is another word for 조상, ancestors, at their gravesite or burial site, at their tombs. Okay, you can also say it's an old family ritual, a ritual that's been passed on from generation to generation. It's a time-honored tradition for us to celebrate Chuseok at our grandparents' home. So you can talk about where you celebrate these special days at so-and-so's home, okay? Let's move on. This custom is a deeply rooted tradition in our family. So deeply rooted means, that's right, it's established, it's fixed, it's been there for a long time. So this custom is a deeply rooted tradition in our family. What about this one? This tradition has been passed on from my grandfather's generation. Pass on means what? That's right. Now, pass away means to die. A polite way of saying to die, pass away. Pass on means to be continued, okay? It's passed on from one generation to another generation. Okay, let's move on and check out some common Korean traditions and customs this time. You can say we show reverence to our ancestors by visiting their tombs or even burial sites. We did take a look at words, the grave site word several times, but tomb is another word you can use, and also burial sites is another one you can use. So we show reverence. It means we show respect, okay, to our ancestors by going to their tombs, going to their grave site, or going to their burial sites. Okay, moving on. We pay respect to our ancestors by, same thing, and then it's ing form, making food and drink offerings. Remember, offerings are things you offer to worship on the anniversary of our ancestors' passing. Now, earlier, I guess we took a look at on the date our ancestor passed away. Same thing, you can say on the anniversary of somebody's passing. It means on the date, the day they passed away in the past, okay? So that about brings us to an end to today's actual talk expressions, everyone. Come to think of it, you can also talk about Confucianism, how it is evident in Korean society and Korean families as well. It's basically, that's right, the beliefs of Confucius, how we respect our elders, that's right. So talk about that when you talk about Korean traditions or Korean families in the future. Okay then, job well done. Let's move on to our next segment. Now it's time for a breather, everyone. You all deserve it, so sit back and relax and just listen carefully to what I say. Don't try to memorize it. Don't pressure yourself to learn it. Just try to enjoy this segment. So today's idiom is to break with tradition. Keep with something. We talked about that, but this means to break with tradition. So guess what it means with this sentence? I've decided to break with tradition and write the book myself. Kind of tough, right? So, I've decided to break with tradition and write the book myself. Here is a definition. To break with tradition, 전통을 깨트리다, 기존의 방법과 달리하다. So you're basically doing something differently. Okay, taking a different approach. The definition is to do something different from what is usually done. Okay, here is another sample sentence. This year, my family will break with the family tradition and not get together. Much easier, right? One more time. This year, my family will break with the family tradition and not get together. We'll perhaps go overseas. We'll go on a vacation. So basically, you're saying to break with tradition, to do something differently from the usual. Okay, everyone, that brings us to an end. Let's now move on to actual interview.
Talk about some interesting Korean traditions or customs and how they are practiced. What are some of your favorite ones? How do you observe them and with whom? Provide as much detail as possible.
I want to talk about respecting culture of the Korea society. The Korean language has different words for the elderly and the younger people, and which shows the respecting culture of our society. And if you look at the table manner, not until the elderly eat foods at first, the young people can eat food. Also, when the young people drink with the older people, we have to turn around our body towards to the side and then drink alcohols. So I want to recommend who want to come Korea. I think you have to think about this kind of respecting culture.
이용우님 멋진 인터뷰 감사드립니다. That was a wonderful interview, don't you think? Well, he talked about, that's right, something very close to filial piety. Have you heard of that? Filial piety. I did briefly talk about Confucian ideals, the way that a lot of Koreans think. Okay, we do have the ideals or views that we should respect our elders and our ancestors, right? So that is basically what he was talking about, the culture of respecting people. So let's check out what he said. Here is a great point mentioned in the interview. He said, the Korean language has different words for, that's right, for the elderly and younger people. So this is a great way to talk about the Korean language. It is so true, right? Well, as in many other languages, there are different ways or different words you can use, but not necessarily for the elder and the younger generation. So the Korean language has different words, different expressions for the elderly and younger people. Wonderful job. Okay, let's move on to some oopsies. The first one is, and if you look at the table manner, okay, the table manner, not until the elderly eat foods at first. The young people can eat foods. A few things kind of bother me here. There are tiny mistakes. So if you look at it, look at the table manner. There's something to be corrected there. Now, until the elderly, it's very good that you said the elderly. You should always say the elderly. Eat foods. Usually we do leave out the S. So it's foods at first. That kind of sounds awkward. Okay, so let's check out how we can fix this. Now, you can say, and if you look at table manners, we're not just talking about one, but several different table manners. Look at table manners, not until the elderly eat first should young people start to eat. That is, I guess, a much more, a clear way of saying that. So now keep in mind, when you say food, you're basically talking about food in general. Also, when you're talking about different kinds of food, like a variety of different kinds of food, that is when you can add the S and say foods, okay? If not, never say foods, just say food. All right, let's move on to number 2. When the young people drink with older people, we have to turn around our body towards to the side. This part kind of sounds awkward. And then drink alcohols. That's right. So those are some things we should take a look at. How can we correct this? Remember, have to turn around our body towards to the side and alcohols here. Let's check out how I changed it. When young people, instead of when young people drink with older people, make it simple, keep it simple. We should turn our body to the side and then drink. You can finish there. Or even say drink alcohol. Do not say alcohols, okay? It's never right. Do not say alcohols with S. So let's take a look. When young people drink with older people, we should turn our body, 몸을 돌리다, right? 어느 쪽으로? Right, to the side. To the side. Turn around means to turn around, okay? So that you can see my back. So turn your body towards the side or to the side and then drink alcohol. So those are just minor changes made to the interview answer, and I hope that you don't make same mistakes in the future as well. Anyhow, 이영우님, job well done, and I wish everyone else the best of luck when doing an interview in English about Korean traditions or customs. Now, for some of you, I'm sure that many of the expressions we learned today related to customs and Korean traditions, you are familiar with them. So think of it as kind of a review. But I do want to advise you to try talking about Korean families. You know, families in Korea, what families are like in Korea. For example, I did mention that a lot of families are family-oriented, meaning they are geared towards family. Family is very important to a lot of Koreans. You can also talk about how respecting the elders is very important. Talk about Confucian ideals, okay? And also filial piety. Look it up, everyone. Filial piety is a word that you will find very useful when talking about the Korean culture and Korean society, Korean people in general. Okay, well, everyone, that brings us to an end. Next time, I will return with another great topic. Let's talk about fear next time, what you are afraid of. Okay, in the meantime, come visit us at www.ebse.co.kr. Leave messages, questions, comments, and check out our scripts as well. Okay, then, everyone, take care. I'll catch you again next time. Bye for now.